The desert stretched endlessly under a burning sun, as if the earth itself had been abandoned by time. Lieutenant Elena Carter stood at the edge of the convoy, her eyes locked on the distant structure ahead, a crumbling compound swallowed half by sand and silence. The wind moved strangely here, not natural, almost like it was trying to warn them. Elena felt it immediately. Something was wrong. Not a detail, not a guess, a feeling deep in her bones. Satellite confirms civilian heat signatures inside. The mission commander's voice came through the radio. Hostages are confirmed. Fast entry, secure and extract. Fast entry. Elena repeated those words in her mind. Fast missions were always the most dangerous because speed meant mistakes, and mistakes in a place like this meant death. The squad prepared silently, weapons checked, breathing controlled, eyes focused. But Elena noticed something else. No movement, no guards, no dust trails from recent activity. A compound in the middle of nowhere with hostages inside, yet completely exposed? That didn't make sense. She stepped closer to Sergeant Miller. "Do we have recon confirmation on enemy positions?" she asked quietly. Miller shrugged. Drone feed showed nothing, probably abandoned, in and out. Elena didn't answer. Her instincts didn't agree. The convoy rolled forward, heavy vehicles crushing sand beneath them. The closer they got, the heavier the air felt. Even the radio static seemed different, unstable. Elena's hand rested tightly on her rifle. Her heartbeat slowed, not from calmness, but from focus. She had been trained for this. Special reconnaissance, desert warfare, hostage rescue. But training never replicated the feeling of walking into something unknown, something waiting. 2 minutes to entry point, the commander said. The lead vehicle stopped. Engines shut off one by one. Silence dropped instantly. Too clean, too perfect. Elena looked at the entrance gate. Half open, rusty metal, no signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. That was the moment she felt its strongest. A trap. "Elena," Miller called. "You good?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanned the ground, and then she saw it. A thin wire, almost invisible, running across the sand, connected to the gate structure. Her pupils tightened. Her body reacted before her voice did. "Stop! Don't move!" she shouted. But it was too late. Boom! The explosion detonated beneath the lead vehicle. Fire erupted violently into the sky. Shockwaves slammed across the desert, throwing sand and metal in every direction. Elena was thrown backward, hitting the ground hard. Her ears rang instantly. Everything became distorted. Sound, vision, even breathing. Smoke filled the air like a collapsing storm. "Ambush! We're under attack!" Someone screamed through chaos. Gunfire exploded from multiple directions. Hidden positions came alive. Dunes, broken walls, ruined towers. Muzzle flashes flickered like lightning in the smoke. It wasn't random. It was coordinated, professional, military-level execution. Elena rolled behind a broken slab of concrete as bullets tore into the ground where she had just been. Sand kicked up around her face. She forced herself to breathe. In. Out. Focus. Survive. She grabbed Private Hayes, who was bleeding from his shoulder. "Stay awake!" she shouted, dragging him behind cover. Hayes groaned in pain. "We walked into this." Elena didn't respond, because she already knew this wasn't just an ambush. It was a designed trap. They had been expected. The radio crackled violently. "Unit Alpha, report status." Static. Then fragments. "Multiple hostiles, no visual, taking fire." Then nothing. Communication was breaking down. Isolation was beginning. Elena peeked over cover. The sight made her stomach tighten. Enemies weren't just firing randomly, they were controlling angles, cutting escape routes, forcing them inward, like animals being herded. Fall back, the commander ordered. But retreat was already collapsing. One vehicle was burning, another had flipped. 2 soldiers were down in open sand, and the fire kept tightening around them. Elena turned her head toward the compound again, and that's when she saw it. The gate wasn't just open now, it was inviting, like it wanted them inside. Her pulse quickened. Inside meant danger, but outside meant death. Another explosion hit nearby. The ground shook violently. Hayes grabbed her arm. "We're not making it out!" Elena looked at him, fear in his eyes, but also trust. That changed everything. She made a decision, a dangerous one, a final one. "I'm going inside." Miller turned sharply. "Are you insane? That's where they want us." Elena stood up slightly, scanning the battlefield. "Exactly," she said. "They want us to stay outside. That's the kill zone." She pointed toward the compound. "But inside is where the hostages are." A long silence followed. The commander's voice came through broken comms. "Carter, if you go alone, you will not have backup." Elena tightened the grip on her weapon. "I don't need backup." A pause. Then softly, "Move." She ran. Across open sand, gunfire chasing her instantly, bullets kicking up around her feet, her breathing sharp, controlled. Every step was life or death. Left, right, dive, roll. She moved like instinct itself. She reached the compound wall, grabbed the edge, pulled herself up. Her boots hit the other side, and suddenly, silence. Complete silence. No gunfire, no explosions, only darkness inside. Elena raised her weapon slowly. The air inside was colder, heavier, different. Then, a sound. Soft, faint, a whisper. "Help!" Her eyes sharpened instantly. She wasn't alone, not even close, and whatever was inside this place was waiting for her. The moment Elena stepped inside the compound, the world outside disappeared. No gunfire, no explosions, no radio chatter, only silence. But it wasn't peaceful silence. It was the kind of silence that listens back. Elena's boots pressed softly against cracked concrete. The hallway ahead was dark, narrow, and swallowed in dust. Faint light slipped through broken ceiling panels, forming shifting shadows on the walls. Her rifle stayed raised, finger off the trigger but ready. "Hello?" she called softly. No answer, only her own voice returning like an echo that didn't belong to her. She moved forward slowly, each step deliberate, each breath controlled. Then a sound, a faint shuffle deeper inside. Elena froze instantly, her eyes narrowed. Not civilians, not likely hostages, something else. She turned a corner and saw it. A large metal door, slightly open, fresh scratch marks on the floor, dragged, recently. Her pulse tightened. "They're inside," she whispered, but something still felt wrong. Too clean, too arranged, like the scene was prepared, not discovered. She pushed the door open with her rifle. Blang! The door creaked loudly. Inside, a large dim room, and people, about 10 civilians, sitting, hands tied, heads lowered. Hostages. Elena's chest loosened for a second. "They're alive," she whispered. One woman slowly lifted her head, fear in her eyes. "Are you American?" she asked in broken voice. "Yes," Elena replied. "You're safe now." But the moment she stepped forward, something changed. A man in the corner smiled. Not relief, not fear, a calm smile. Too calm. Elena noticed it instantly. Her grip tightened. "Everyone stay still," she ordered. But then the man spoke. You came faster than expected. Elena's eyes locked on him. That wasn't a hostage tone. That was confidence, control, authority. In one sudden movement, the man stood up, and the entire room shifted. The hostages lifted their heads, slowly, synchronized. No fear anymore, only focus. Elena's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. It wasn't a rescue. It was a setup inside a setup. The lights flickered on. Bright white floodlights exploded across the room. Elena raised her rifle instantly, but it was too late. Metal shutters slammed down over every exit. Clang, clang, clang. All doors sealed, locked, trapped. Her radio exploded with static. Then silence. Complete signal loss. She was cut off, completely alone. The man stepped closer, now fully visible. Clean tactical gear under civilian disguise. Not a hostage, not a victim, a handler. "Lieutenant Carter," he said calmly, "you passed the first trap." Elena didn't respond. Her eyes scanned every corner, escape points, angles, threats, counting seconds. "What is this?" she asked coldly. The man smiled. "This is containment." He gestured around. "You didn't rescue anyone. You walked into a controlled extraction zone." Elena's jaw tightened. "So the civilians never existed," he interrupted. A pause. Then softer, or rather, "they existed until you arrived." The meaning hit her instantly. Her blood ran cold. They weren't hostages. They were bait. Psychological warfare. A mission designed not to kill her squad, but to isolate her. Behind her, a click. Elena spun instantly. Blang. She fired. A decoy drone exploded mid-air. Too fast. Too precise. They were testing her reactions, studying her. "Impressive reflexes," the man said calmly. Elena aimed her rifle at him. "Open the doors." He shook his head. "I can't." A pause. Then, "I don't control them anymore." Suddenly, a loud metallic vibration echoed through the walls. The structure began shifting, panels sliding, corridors changing. The compound itself was moving. Elena's eyes widened. This isn't a building, she realized. It's a maze. The man stepped backward. "You have 12 minutes before Phase 2 begins." Elena snapped. "What is Phase 2? He looked at her almost respectfully. "Survival." And then he activated something on his wrist. A signal. A countdown started. Blang. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms triggered. Hidden speakers came alive. Containment active. Subject, Carter, Elena. Status, isolated. The man walked toward a side corridor. Before leaving, he said one last thing. "You should have stayed outside." Then he disappeared into the shifting walls. Elena was alone, completely locked inside a moving structure. No backup, no communication, no map, only a countdown. She inhaled deeply. Fear tried to rise, but she crushed it immediately. Not now. Not here. She checked her ammo. Half magazine, 1 grenade, limited time, no mistakes allowed. Suddenly, a wall shifted open on its own, revealing a corridor, long, dark, unknown, a path, or a trap. Her instincts screamed, "Don't go," but logic answered, "You have no choice." Elena stepped forward. The corridor sealed behind her instantly. Clang. She didn't turn back, because back no longer existed, only forward, and somewhere deep inside the shifting maze, something was moving, watching, tracking, hunting. Elena whispered to herself, "I'm getting out of here." But the compound didn't answer. It only rearranged itself to make sure she wouldn't. The corridor behind Elena sealed shut with a heavy metallic clang, cutting off every trace of the room she had just left. For a moment, she didn't move. She simply stood in the darkness, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices. Only the faint hum of machinery deep inside the walls, like the entire compound was breathing, alive. Elena raised her rifle slowly. Her flashlight flicked on, cutting a thin beam through the blackness ahead. The corridor stretched long, too long, bending slightly like it didn't follow normal structure rules. "This isn't architecture," she whispered. "This is designed for control." She started moving. Careful steps, measured breath. But after just 10 meters, she stopped. Something had changed. The air. It felt colder. Not temperature. Presence. Like she had crossed into a monitored zone. Then, a faint sound came through the walls. Click. 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 Elena froze instantly. Her eyes scanned every corner. The sound wasn't random. It was rhythmic, controlled, like a system waking up. Suddenly, blast, the lights above her flickered on. Bright white strips embedded in the ceiling illuminated the corridor, and with them, the walls shifted. Slowly, mechanically. Panels sliding sideways like puzzle pieces rearranging themselves. Elena stepped back, but the floor behind her sealed shut. She turned forward, and the corridor had changed shape. It was no longer straight. It was branching. "Great," she muttered. "A moving maze." Her radio suddenly crackled. Elena's body tensed instantly. "Command, do you copy?" Static. Then, a voice. "Elena, if you can hear this?" Her heart jumped. Miller's voice, but broken, delayed, unstable. "Miller, where are you?" she responded quickly. A pause. Then, "We're trying to breach the structure, but it's not stable. It's shifting." Elena looked around. "I know," she said. "I'm inside it." Silence. Then Miller whispered, "Get out of there. That place isn't a compound. It's a containment system." Elena's jaw tightened. "Tell me something useful." A long pause. Then, "There might be underground access. Thermal scans show hollow layers beneath you." Elena looked down. The floor. Before she could respond, a loud metallic bang echoed behind her. She spun instantly. A wall had opened, not manually, automatically, and something moved inside it. A drone. Small, fast, silent. It hovered for half a second, then locked onto her. Blast. It fired. Elena dove instantly, rolling across the floor as bullets tore through metal panels. She returned fire. One shot. Blast. The drone exploded mid-air. Shrapnel scattered. Silence returned. But now she knew she wasn't alone in the maze. She was being hunted. The voice on radio came back again. "Elena, listen, there's a maintenance core somewhere below, if you can reach it." Signal broke. "Of course there's a catch," she muttered. She moved forward again, faster now, because staying still meant death. The maze responded to movement. Every step triggered something. Walls shifted behind her, new corridors opened ahead, like it was adapting, learning. Then, she saw something that made her stop. A body, leaning against the wall. Uniform. American. Her breath froze. She stepped closer slowly. It was Sergeant Hayes, her teammate. But wrong. His eyes were open, but lifeless, and his radio was still blinking. Elena knelt instantly. "Hayes, hey, stay with me." But there was no response. No pulse, no movement. Her hand trembled slightly. This wasn't possible. He was outside. He never entered the compound. Then she saw something. A small device attached to his vest. A projector unit. Her eyes widened. No. The body distorted, like static, like an illusion breaking apart. And then, it vanished. Just pixels of light dissolving into nothing. Elena stepped back immediately. "It's not real," she whispered. "They're showing me things." The maze wasn't just physical. It was psychological. A voice came through speakers above her. "Subject response test, successful. Fear triggers, active." Elena clenched her jaw. "You want to play mind games?" she muttered. "I've survived worse than your tricks." Suddenly, the floor beneath her vibrated. A section opened ahead, revealing a narrow staircase going downward. Dark, deep, unknown. Her radio crackled one last time. "Elena, if you find stairs, go down. That's your only chance." Then silence. She stared at the stairs. Down meant deeper. Deeper meant death, but staying here meant guaranteed death. She exhaled slowly, checked her ammo. 1 magazine left, grenade still intact, heart steadying. Then she stepped onto the stairs. Immediately, the walls behind her sealed shut again. No return, only descent. As she moved downward, the air changed again. Heavier, damp. Mechanical humming grew louder, like she was entering the heart of something alive. Then, she heard it. Footsteps, behind her. Slow, deliberate. She spun instantly. Blast. Flashlight beam cut through darkness. Nothing. No one. But the footsteps continued. Closer now. Circling. Elena whispered, "I know you're there." No answer. Just silence. And then, a whisper behind her ear. "You're finally where we want you." The whisper behind Elena's ear didn't come from a direction. It came from everywhere. "You're finally where we want you." Her body reacted instantly. She spun and fired. The bullet sliced through empty darkness. No target, no body, only echoing silence. But her instinct screamed louder than her thoughts. They are close. The narrow staircase beneath the maze twisted deeper into the earth. Metal steps groaned under her weight, vibrating with every cautious movement she made. Elena didn't stop. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant fear. So she moved, downward, into the unknown. The air changed again. Now it felt mechanical, like she was breathing inside a machine instead of a structure. The humming grew louder with each step, a low-frequency vibration that pressed against her chest. Alive. The entire system was alive. Finally, the stairs ended. A wide underground chamber opened before her, and Elena froze. A massive core structure stood in the center, circular, glowing, surrounded by rotating mechanical arms and data panels. Cables the thickness of her arm disappeared into the floor. It wasn't a base. It wasn't a compound. It was a control engine. Elena stepped forward slowly. Her boots echoed in the vast chamber. Every sound felt amplified. Every breath felt exposed. Then, a voice, not from speakers, from the room itself. "Subject Carter has entered core zone." Elena raised her rifle instantly. "Show yourself," she shouted. Silence. Then, applause. Slow, deliberate. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, the same man from earlier. Calm, collected, almost respectful. "You made it," he said. Elena's eyes narrowed. "End this, now." He smiled faintly. "This is the end." He walked around the core structure. "Everything you experienced, the ambush, the hostages, the maze, it was never about killing your team." He looked at her directly. "It was about you." Elena tightened her grip. "Why me?" The man tilted his head slightly. "Because you don't break easily." A pause. "We needed someone who wouldn't quit." Elena's jaw tightened. "So I was your experiment?" "No," he corrected. "You were our solution." The core behind him began to glow brighter. The hum intensified. The entire room vibrated. "We've been studying battlefield psychology, fear response, decision pressure, isolation endurance." He gestured toward the machine. "This system adapts in real time, and you adapted better than anyone before you." Elena's eyes flicked to the exits, still sealed, still locked, still watching. "You're not getting out of here," she said coldly. The man smiled. "Actually," he pressed a small device in his hand. "You already chose how this ends." Suddenly, the core lit up red. Alarms triggered instantly. Containment reset initiated. Elena's eyes widened. "What did you do?" The man stepped back. "I triggered phase collapse." The chamber started shaking violently. Metal panels shifted. Cables snapped and retracted. The entire underground system began shutting down, or collapsing. "You're destroying it?" Elena shouted. The man looked almost peaceful. "I'm freeing it." A pause. "And you with it." The floor beneath her trembled. Cracks formed. Energy surged through the core like a heartbeat. Elena realized it instantly. "This place is going to implode." The man nodded. "And only one exit will open during collapse." He looked at her. "You'll have to earn it." Then he stepped backward into darkness and vanished. The entire chamber shook violently. The core erupted with blinding light. Systems screamed. Metal screamed louder. Elena ran. No hesitation now. Pure survival. She sprinted across the shaking floor as debris fell from above. The exit doors flickered, locking and unlocking randomly. "Come on," she muttered. "Come on." A career briefly opened on the far side, then closed. Another behind her, then sealed instantly. The system was choosing unpredictability. She saw it. A narrow opening near the base of the core, barely accessible. A maintenance tunnel. She sprinted towards it. A shockwave threw her sideways. She slammed into the ground hard. Pain shot through her arm, but she got back up instantly. The core began to collapse faster. The chamber was dying. Elena crawled through the narrowing tunnel entrance just as the structure behind her detonated inward. A wave of heat and light exploded behind her. She ran through the tunnel. Faster, faster. The walls were shaking apart, the system collapsing like a dying organism. Then, a faint voice came through her broken radio. "Elena, we see collapse signals. Hold on, we're breaching the surface." It was Miller. Real time. "Surface access ahead," he shouted. Elena burst through the tunnel exit. A shockwave exploded beneath the sand, swallowing everything that had been built below. Silence returned slowly. Boots rushed towards her. Her squad. Real soldiers. Real rescue. "Elena!" Miller shouted, kneeling beside her. "You're alive!" Elena didn't answer immediately. She just looked back at the collapsing desert, at the place that was never just a mission. "It wasn't a rescue mission," she said quietly. "What was it?" Miller frowned. Elena's eyes hardened. "A test." A long pause. Then she added, "And I passed, but barely." Behind them, the desert finally settled. No more movement, no more signals. Only silence. But deep underground, something still flickered for a moment before going dark. Watching systems shutting down. Waiting for the next subject.